Have you ever tried listening to silence in a house where everyone has a smartphone? The truth is, there is no silence there. Even when no one is talking, the air vibrates. A high frequency itch from working processors, the barely audible whine of charging cables, and most of all, the noise of thoughts that are never allowed to settle. I'm 26, and only now am I beginning to understand what real calm actually feels like. But that house, our old house, it was full of ghosts trapped inside glass rectangles. We lived in a state of constant notification. You know that feeling when your phone vibrates in your pocket, even when it's not there? Phantom vibrations. They were in all of us. My mornings didn't start with sunlight. They started with blue light, burning into my retinas before I even wiped the sleep from my eyes. First breath, and immediately, check. Who liked my post? Who replied? What happened in the world while I slept those miserable 6 hours I had basically stolen from myself? It was like an adrenaline shot straight into the brain. You're not even awake yet, but you're already required to feel something. Anger at politicians, envy towards some influencer in Bali, anxiety about a new virus. We had breakfast together, but it was an illusion. 4 people at one table, 4 completely different realities. Mom placed the plates with mechanical precision, her eyes locked on the screen propped up against the spice rack. Dad drank his coffee without tasting it, his thumb moving across his phone like a piston in an engine. Mikey? Mikey simply disappeared into his tablet. His jaw moved in rhythm with the game, but his mind was light years away from that bowl of oatmeal. We didn't talk. We exchanged functional sounds. Salt. Uh-huh. I'm leaving. It wasn't a conversation. It was a data transfer protocol, compressed to the bare minimum so nothing interfered with what really mattered. What was happening in there, inside the networks. My father, if I had to paint a portrait of him from that time, I'd draw a chair, a back, and the weak glow of a monitor. His home office was a sanctuary, but not the kind where people pray, the kind where time gets sacrificed. He worked in something like global logistics or flow optimization. I still don't know his exact title, and it doesn't really matter. What mattered was that his job behaved like a black hole. It consumed everything. His attention, his humor, his ability to empathize. I remember walking into his office once. I was 14. I just wanted to show him a drawing. I was getting into digital art back then. I stood in the doorway for 5 minutes. He saw me. I know he did. Peripheral vision. But he didn't turn around. His fingers flew across the keyboard. His face was frozen in absolute concentration. Dad? I said quietly. 1 second, Chris. I need to send an email to London. They're waiting. That 1 second lasted forever. London couldn't wait. Singapore couldn't wait. New York demanded his immediate presence. And me? I could wait. I was part of his home life, and home life ranked somewhere near a background process, something that should run quietly and consume as few resources as possible. When he finally turned around, his eyes were empty. You know that look? The look of someone who's just returned from a long trip and doesn't immediately recognize their own furniture. What is it? He asked, looking at his watch, not at my drawing. Oh, nothing. I just wanted to ask about the weekend. We'll see. If we close the quarter, maybe we'll go somewhere. Go now. I need to work. Go now. I need to work. That sentence became the epitaph on the grave of our relationship. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't a tyrant. He genuinely believed that his presence as a father was measured in paid bills. That buying me a new gaming laptop meant he had done his duty. He didn't understand that the laptop was just another wall between us. He lived in numbers. His self-worth was measured in KPIs, charts, and approval emails from upper management. When he came out of his office for dinner, he brought that cold, calculating cloud with him. And sometimes it felt like he was subconsciously trying to optimize us, too. Mikey, why aren't you learning to code? That's what matters now. Chris, your math grades are an efficiency failure. You need to improve. He spoke to us like a manager addressing underperforming employees, so we shut down. We learned how to simulate normalcy, just well enough for him to return to his digital London and leave us alone. And then there was Mom. If Dad hid inside his work, Mom hid inside control, trying to manage a world that didn't belong to her. She was an information addict. You know the type. Subscribed to every news outlet, every survival expert, every neighborhood chat group. She consumed the news as if the sun wouldn't rise unless she personally stayed alert. Her mornings began with currency rates, infection statistics, and breaking alerts. She absorbed global negativity like a sponge. She knew about floods in Indonesia and strikes in Paris, but she didn't know that Mikey hadn't had a friend at school in over a month. "Did you hear?" she'd say, setting plates down without looking at us. "They're predicting a semiconductor shortage next month. And this new strain, Chris, are you wearing a mask?" "Mom, I don't even go to school. It's remote." "Still, better safe than sorry. We should order more sanitizer." She lived in a permanent state of catastrophe. She believed that if she stopped watching the news, something irreversible would happen. Information was her armor. If she knew about the enemy couldn't surprise her. But the truth was, the armor had turned into a cage. She was physically exhausted from fighting the windmills of global chaos. I'd see her sitting in a chair, staring at her tablet, her fingers trembling. She searched for confirmation of her fears, and the internet, kind, obedient, delivered thousands. She stopped cooking the complicated meals we used to love. Sundays used to smell like baked bread, cinnamon, comfort. Now the house smelled like disinfectant. Food became fuel, something to consume quickly before returning to monitoring the situation. Once I found her in the kitchen at 3 a.m, sitting in the dark. Only her phone lit her face, turning it into a shadow theater mask. "Mom? What are you doing?" "There was a tornado in Texas, Chris. So much destruction." "Mom, we're not in Texas. We're thousands of miles away. Go to sleep." "You don't understand. Everything is connected. The world is so fragile." She was looking at me, but I knew she wasn't seeing her son. She was seeing a potential victim, and her love didn't show up as hugs. It showed up as endless links to safety articles I never opened. And then there was Mikey, my little brother, a true digital native, in the saddest sense of the phrase. If I still remembered building forts out of branches and scraping my knees on dirt, Mikey had always lived in a flat, touch-sensitive world. He grew up in the shadow of our screens. From infancy, a tablet was placed in his hands, so he'd sit quietly while Dad worked and Mom read the news. And he did sit quietly. He became the perfect child, silent, invisible, undemanding. But it was the silence of an abandoned well. Mikey stopped asking us to play with him. Why would he, when Roblox gave him thousands of friends? He stopped asking why, because Google answered faster and more thoroughly than perpetually busy adults. His imagination was hijacked by ready-made visuals. He didn't need to fantasize. Designers in Silicon Valley did it for him. Sometimes I watched him from the side. A 9-year-old boy hunched over a screen. Emotionless face. Only his pupils darted wildly, reflecting flashes of virtual battles. He wasn't playing. He was consuming. That was his job. Once he approached Dad during a rare break. "Dad, look at the farm I built." Dad didn't turn his head. He was typing a message. "Nice, Mikey. Looks great." "You didn't even look." A rare spark of real emotion flashed in my brother's voice. "I trust you. Don't be dramatic. I'm busy with something important." Mikey stood there for a second. His shoulders dropped, just like Mom's always did. He turned around and went back to his room. After that, he stopped showing anything. He learned the rules. In this house, attention was the most expensive resource, and there wasn't enough to go around. Our dinner table was a temporary ceasefire zone, where no one spoke, so nothing could escalate. We sat in a row, like subway passengers, headed in the same direction, infinitely distant. I remember one specific evening, a week before that day. Mom made lasagna. It smelled incredible. One of those rare moments when she stepped away from the news for an hour. We sat down. Dad placed his phone on a stand beside his plate. Mom rested her tablet on her lap. I held my phone in my left hand, fork in my right. Mikey propped his head on his hand, staring at the screen lying on the tablecloth. "How's the lasagna?" Mom asked. It was a risk. She tried to start a conversation. "Good," Dad replied, eyes locked on an oil price chart. "Needs more salt." "I use the same amount as always," she said, hurt. "Uh-huh." Silence again. Just chewing. Then Dad's phone vibrated. He grabbed it like a life preserver. "Yeah, I saw it. No, that won't work. Recalculate the margin. I'll be online in 10 minutes. He ate faster, almost swallowing the food, eager to get back to his office. "Where are you rushing off to?" Mom asked. "We just sat down." "Work doesn't wait, Ellen. If I don't respond now, the contract goes to a competitor. You do want to take a vacation this summer, right? I want you to sit with us for 10 minutes without your damn London." Her voice shook. Dad froze, fork halfway to his mouth. "Danger?" Mikey and I instinctively shrank back. "I work for you," Dad said coldly, "so you can have all this, so you can read your news on a new tablet and Chris can buy his games. My work is how I care for this family. If that's not enough, say it." Mom said nothing. She lowered her eyes to the tablet. A second later, the familiar feed refresh sound. She retreated into her fortress. Dad finished in 2 bites and disappeared into his office, slamming the door. Mikey looked at me. His eyes were too big, too old. "Chris, why are they mad?" "I don't know, little man. Probably just tired. Go play." He nodded and went back to his screen. The conflict was over. We scattered back to our digital corners, healing real wounds with virtual band-aids. We didn't know these were the last days of our old world. A world that was too loud to be alive,